You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it is Monday. It's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Therefore, all the Spanish-speaking people in the country are going to be celebrating. And it's a major holiday in Mexico, so happy Cinco de Mayo. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. This is CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. You follow me on X at Corsi Jerome 1. And Substack, we're doing Substacks almost every day at jeromecorsi.phd.substack.com. jeromecorsiphd.substack.com. First, President Trump did a couple of interviews this weekend. There's one that we're going to play some clips from. Chris has got it queued up. And he did also a presser from the airplane coming back from Mar-a-Lago to Washington. It's a little bit hard to hear, but Trump is in a combative mood with this leftist media, and I think he's doing a good job of showing the left's bias. Let's listen to a few clips from the TV interview. Chris, you want to cue it up and explain what we've got?
Yeah, he talked with Kristen Welker. I believe it was Meet the Press over the weekend.
Right.
One of those generic shows. They're all kind of conglomerated into one to me. So that's just
they all Sunday morning shows with talk shows are kind of just been one conglomerate of media for usually the administration. Okay, let's go ahead and hear how this went.
Yeah, these are the shows that make you miss Crossfire, which was great.
Yeah,
I love
Crossfire is probably coming back.
Well, I would like to see that. One of my favorite episodes, if you don't mind my saying, was during the censorship era. It was kind of the other way around, where the right was doing more of the censoring. Now it's the left. It was Pat Buchanan versus Mojo Nixon, an artist, a singer that I liked. So it was pretty good. There was a lot of really intellectual discussion between the two when Mojo was out of character. Anyway, Trump was in character, and so was Kristen Welker. They did talk some serious issues. I believe this one's about immigration.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth.
But
some of the
United States is president.
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Is anyone in your administration right now in contact with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia to the United
States? I don't know. You'd have to ask the Attorney General that.
Okay, that's enough of this right here, Chris. I mean, the left and the Democrats are down the party of Venezuelan MS-13 thugs. And that's what they're championing. So I'd say let them go ahead and champion them. I mean, they're looking stupid at the American people. They want murderers, criminals, mother rapers, father rapers, baby rapers in our country, and they have rights. What happens to the victims? Well, they don't have any rights. It's the mother rapers, father rapers, and baby rapers that the Democrats like. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, exactly. They've been embarrassing themselves, covering for and pushing for criminals for a very long time, whether it be the fentanyl pushing drug cartels because they have rights too. All right, I get that. Hey, I remember an administration that was arming them, for that matter, back in the day. Oh, yeah. Yes. We remember Fast and Furious. We're not going to forget that. The second thing is this. If you listen to Kristen Welker's interview closely, these questions, a lot of them were loaded.
They're loaded. Almost every question she asks is loaded.
Right, and Trump's landed as an unfair interview, I guess. But most of these are going to be, if you're a Republican anyway. People don't realize this isn't just a Trump thing. I know the Trump hate is there amongst the left, and it's more pronounced because there are people in the neocon section that don't. But remember when George Bush was elected, it was 8 years of Bush is a racist. When Ronald Reagan was elected, there was no internet, but the New York Times even started killing his presidency at the inauguration, calling it a coronation. And from then on, it was he did this, he killed the economy. He's doing something racist. That's the way they operate, basically.
It's a gotcha media, and all they
Right.
want to do is score points by who can be the most clever to make the president look bad.
Right.
Of course, if it's Joe Biden, I mean, then there's a story on Liberty Daily here about Joe Biden and being the biggest cover up in American history.
Well,
This comes from Jeff Courier, who I'm, a broadcaster he does the Ringside Politics show down in New Orleans. I've been on his show for a long time. And he said for several years it's apparent that Biden is mentally incompetent and suffering from a significant cognitive decline. Honest observers noticed Biden was having trouble with the 2020 presidential campaign. In response, his political advisors sidelined Biden to the, quote, basement throughout the campaign. He held few public events. And he goes on, and he, basically is saying that this is one of the hugest, most important cover-ups in American history. And I think that that's basically the case. And, I guess the other major incident was Woodrow Wilson when he had a stroke. His wife ran the country, and they covered that up too. But again,
I just want to interject here. They did something similar, by the way. They told the vice president, "Go home, get out of here. We don't want you to do anything." That's the truth. They sent him home. Didn't he knock on the door and say, I always forget his name. The vice president knocked on the door and said, "Look, I'm here. I'll help out. I'll take over. Nope, go home. The Edith's going to take over day-to-day operations, and the rest of the state, the rest of the administration will run things."
Yeah, we don't need you.
Same thing as the Biden administration. I'd still stand by the fact that the media covered up Joe Biden to make him look good. I get that. But the administration and the Democrat Party covered him up so they could avoid Kamala Harris becoming president.
Well, and Biden did them all in because when Obama showed up and say, "Joe, you're not going to be president," he almost immediately hit X and said, "Well, then Kamala is going to be president," and he outmaneuvered them.
Yes, that's scary too.
I'm sure Biden didn't do that, but I'm sure whoever did it for him knew what they were doing.
To your point, now, as you said just earlier, the media right now, the mainstream media is trying their best to make Trump look bad. It's like a competition. Who can make him look the worst? Well, I suppose under the Biden administration, the bigger challenge is who can make him look good.
Yeah, well, they tried very hard to make. Of course, he was shoving ice cream in his face all the time, so and smelling little girls.
Yes,
signaling pedophiles apply here.
We have some more of Trump's greatest hits from over the weekend.
Okay,
so
let's go. Let's continue with the Trump greatest hits for a few minutes.
Well,
go ahead.
Let's take it out of the serious issues. I have a tariff one that's really good, but this is one where he actually calls Welker out about loaded questions.
Okay,
You say to those who believe you are taking the country down an authoritarian path.
There's a loaded question.
Well, there you go again. Why don't you ask it a different way? Many people wanted to come into our country. Many people love Trump. I won the election. They didn't win the election. I got a lot more votes than they did. I won the popular vote. I won all 7 swing states by a lot. A lot of people were surprised. I said, I think he could win 4, maybe 5. No, I won all 7, and I won by a lot. And I won, actually, I think there was a lot of hanky-panky going on, but it was too big to rig. That's the good news. It's too big to rig. But let me just say, so when you make these statements about people say this, well, they had their chance at the election and they lost big. So you should ask the question differently. You should say, what about the people that want to be in this country? What about the people that love this country?
But what do you say? I'm asking it on behalf of those people to give you a chance to respond to them. What do you say to those people, sir?
Those people are going to be very happy. They're going to have to see some results. And I think we had a great 100 days. There are a lot of people that say it was unprecedented. It was an absolutely unprecedented 100 days. And I hope that they're going to be right.
Okay, let's stop it right there, because again, you've got a loaded question. She's obviously trying to ask it in a negative way. Got questions filled with premises that Trump's authoritarian. The fact is, people who are not citizens of the United States do not have the rights of citizens. People who are criminals and here illegally have the least rights. So if the Democrats are going to go in and say, well, we have to, get all of these MS-13 terrorists lawyered up and make sure each one of them has to be individually deported, we'll never deport anybody. That's what they want. They want to fill the country with criminals. And again, the Democrats' destruction of America is so apparent to everybody that I don't know how these people think that they can command votes, unless, of course, they don't care about the people who get their heads smashed in on home invasions. That's just fine with them. They don't care about the people who are stabbed in the streets of New York for no apparent reason by some insane illegal immigrant who just decided he was going to, go into the subway and create havoc. These people want chaos, and they want death and destruction. They become evil.
Right.
Communist parties the Democrats have become a communist party that's now a treasonous party.
But it's always in somebody else's backyard. That's the key. These people who push these laws and who create them and who enforce, who make them happen, if you will, they never feel the effects or the consequences of their legislation. It's always other people, somebody else's neighborhood, somebody else's state, somebody else's country, or I should say, rural area. No, not in their sheltered places, not in their sheltered neighborhoods, ever.
Well, again, it's this leftist liberal mentality, okay, where they think we're going to do good. We're going to care about the blacks. We're going to make them wealthy. We're going to make we care about injustice. Yeah, well, they care about it from a distance to make themselves feel less guilty. And then they don't realize that they're manipulating the poverty of the African Americans, just like the oppression of the Palestinians in Gaza, become poster children for these leftist narratives that are destructive and are at the bottom supporting terrorism, crime, they think they can't create their utopian communist nation unless they destroy everything that's good about America. And so therefore, from MS-13 to, MK Ultra is one leap forward into the abyss of this satanic leftist critical race theory. Chris?
I can't disagree with you there, and that's the whole idea. It's basically about the latest thing. It's about what they can push upon us. It's about what they can use in the media to make the other side, or at least minimize the other side, make sort of a group of people in the middle feel bad for thinking one way. That's the word. That's the term. Emotional manipulation. That's how they're doing it.
It is, and the universities, which have had all this money,
Yes.
and have only hired leftist, communist, treasonous professors, white professors who preach against white supremacy.
Yeah, and foreign interests are the ones that are funding these colleges, by the way, as we talked about last week.
Well, I think Trump is on to a whole reconstruction of America. I think the American people have had it with the left. The Democratic Party wants to become a traitorous party and commit suicide. So be it. Okay, now I want to trend. You had one more clip, I think, about begging for this Maryland dad to be returned from the El Salvadorian prison.
I believe I had that. I think we talked about that that was on just a little bit here. She didn't do straight. The other one I was talking about was CNN interviewing cartel members.
Yes, that's good. Show
Yeah.
that for a minute.
Yeah, that's one. And it's similar because what they're doing is, to your point here, what they're doing is trying to get all of us to sympathize with the criminals.
Yeah.
According to the Trump administration, you are a terrorist. I mean, the cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Está fea la situación, ¿verdad? Está fea la situación, pero pues de todos modos tenemos que comer.
What's your message to Donald Trump if he's watching this?
Mi respeto, él tiene que según él buscar lo mejor para los suyos. Pero el detalle que ya están los consumidores, ¿no? Si no hubiera consumidores, pues.
And there we go. He's this interview was basically with a cartel member. Yeah, I know it's a big scoop to talk to them, but these "how do you feel" questions.
Yeah, consumers of drugs, consumers of violence, consumers of pedophilia, consumers of everything evil. And so the Democrats want to be on this kick, and mutilating children in schools, and the parents can't know about it. The Democrats are insane right now, and even the leading Democrats are talking about the Democrats have gone over the cliff. As far as I'm concerned, we can get rid of the entire Democratic Party, and I won't miss it at all. It's absolutely worthless in terms of its service to America. Okay, and if that whole faction of America, which is anti-America, wants to subsist on government payments, once we get rid of U.S. aid, it's done. Cut their money and they die. Cut their money, and George Soros can't fund anti-American groups which build mansions for the two Maoist leaders of Black Lives Matter. Cut the money. It's all about the money. Cut the money, and these groups die and blow away like the wind. Okay, let's go on to a few other subjects. I want to cover the Ukraine war. There's more and more coming out. Of course, Zelensky, who met with Trump in the Vatican, they had the sit down inside St. Peter's Cathedral among all the beautiful marble, and they put two chairs out, and these guys are talking nose to nose. And I'm sure Trump is telling Zelensky, look, punk, we've had it with you, and we'll just cut your money off, and that's it. So I don't think why Trump would give these people any more money to fight is beyond me. And Trump, I think, is caught on to the fact that, the gotcha questions and this whole war in Ukraine have just been democratic insanity. And going back to Victoria Nuland and Hillary Clinton with their foundation, these are the criminals, and we're about to get them caught. I'm going to be writing some more articles on God's Five Stones. Please go to God's Five Stones, G-O-D, no apostrophe S, and F-I-V-E spelled out, STONES.com. We just posted an article yesterday, an analysis by Andrew Paquette, brand new. And what it shows is, again, in Wisconsin, we've now actually found a secret algorithm, and the algorithm is a algorithm which basically has a hidden number in it, which is the record locator for determining where a couple of what they've done is that the record locator has identified like a string of characters, N, capital M, 3 dash $, etc. And that locates a record, and that record links to two records for the same people. So the two records for the same person each have their own voter ID. And when we looked at the voter registration files and the voter history files, it's absolutely clear that what has happened is that you've got a situation where both voters vote in the elections. We can show that both Jerome Corsi's with two different IDs identified by the same secret record locator voted. It's the first time we've been able to prove that there are these secret record locators, algorithmic record locators that identify the false votes the Democrats create that then can be used and voted. Okay, now that's the key, because it's very clear that both records that fall under this secret code ID, record locator for the algorithm, are the same person. The names match, the addresses match. And again, this is a new phenomenon. It's one we have not seen before. And I think what we're seeing, and we're going to make it clear, that this is a major development. Okay, and so if you just go to God's Five Stones on the homepage, we just posted it, so it's the first thing you see. And if you go down a little bit read the whole article, if you click and get the whole article, who press on or hover over the document to view. It's got 4 pages. You can then go look at all 4 pages, And the overview of findings shows you exactly what the deal is in terms of how these secret record identifiers work. Okay, so please take a look at this article, and I think you'll find it extremely interesting. Okay, let's go on a little bit further. But God's Five Stones is going to be now working with this. Alina Habba created a task force that includes both Tulsi Gabbard at the Department of Homeland Security, and it includes Kash Patel at the FBI, and they are tasked with going and finding integrity in the voter rolls and the removal of all these voters who are falsified voters, which ultimately means getting control of the computers of the state boards of elections and getting these algorithms out of the computers. Again, this is a national security problem because foreign nations can penetrate the computers. If anybody's penetrating the computers of the state boards of election, foreign nations can do it. We also have plenty of evidence of the Dominion machines and others that now can be reevaluated because they're no longer challenging a 2020 election. We're saying the new argument is that foreign nations can access our computers for voting, and that's a national security problem. Under Article 2 powers, as Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump can take his executive order and demand that the states have voter rolls redone completely from scratch, to have voter IDs, proof of citizenship, and paper ballots. So this is coming to a head, and I think we're going to see a lot more action now that this task force has been created. Okay, back to Ukraine again. I want to make it clear that Zelensky is still continuing to be belligerent and say he's going to take this Moscow Victory Day, when there's something like 20 heads of state in Moscow, and he's going to have a drone attack to try to kill them. And Medvedev came out and said, well, that's okay. We can nuke Kiev and Kiev will be gone. Well, again, I think that what's recognized, and there's a piece out here by Martin Armstrong, who I have followed over the years. Martin Armstrong is a financial and geopolitical analyst of cycles, business cycles. And he is saying very clearly that what we're seeing here is, by the way, he's had for the past 3 decades, he's been able to predict various turns in the economy. He predicted Trump would win the 2024 presidential election in a landslide many months ahead of November. Okay, he called the huge stock crash of 1987 to the day. Okay, so he's been right about a lot of things. And what he's saying is that NATO wanted us to come to the verge of nuclear war. And essentially, that's been the case with Zelensky. Zelensky, again, knows that if he attacks Moscow the way he was talking about on this Victory Day, Russia will retaliate. And so Europe wants retaliation. Okay, so Europe's got trillions of dollars of debt they cannot pay. And leadership knows that if they don't have a nuclear war, they don't have war, the people in Europe are going to come after the EU. So what Armstrong is writing is, quote, Europe does not want peace. Look at the things the EU has said. Russia's too big and has to be broken up. I have very good contacts very high up, and they really do think they can conquer Russia. It has 75 trillion in natural resource assets. Then they will control that. Once they get their hands on that, they will rise to the top countries of the world, like the Roman Empire will be resurrected or something. But they will lose. The third time is going to be the charm. The euro will disappear, not the dollar. Well, I agree with Armstrong. I think that what we're seeing here is the end of the EU. The European nations are bankrupt. Spain just turned on green energy and the grid collapsed. Germany turned off its nuclear power plants last year. That's insanity. Germany is deindustrializing. Europe is broke. And Europe is in a crisis of being overrun by Muslims who do not assimilate. Europe is no longer Europe. Europe's out of control. It's in a dangerous spin, downward spiral. Okay, now we don't need to be aboard this crashing airplane. All Trump has to do again is say, we're not funding NATO. Trump did put out, again, a challenge that NATO has to come up with more money to support NATO. And of course, the European nations all say they'll do it. But they don't do it. They don't come back and support NATO. They want us to support NATO. On our money, Europe believes it can challenge Russia into a third world nuclear war. Okay, now if Ukraine has signed this resource deal with Trump, Trump is getting concessions from Zelensky that Zelensky doesn't want to admit he is giving. Okay, so, the central banks in Europe are at risk of crashing. Central bank in the United States, our Fed, is at risk of crashing. And Powell is not lowering interest rates. He's not stimulating the economy. Powell has no interest in helping Donald Trump. Between Powell at the Fed and John Roberts on the Supreme Court, we've got two worthless anti-Trump haters. And they are going to do everything they can to tank Trump. Well, it's not going to succeed. And John Roberts had better watch it, because his anti-Trump vehemence is coming out in his country club. And if he doesn't think that's getting reported, he doesn't think we know about that, doesn't think it's clear of his bias, well, if he's going to be a biased Supreme Court justice, the head of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, and he's biased anti-Trump, he's destroying his own reputation. And it wouldn't take much for John Roberts to destroy his reputation after he said that Obamacare was constitutional. And what's he going to do next? Say that illegal immigrants have rights that need to be protected before they can be deported? The Constitution does not give the courts any enforcement power. And President Trump, as commander-in-chief, has a right to remove these dangerous criminals from our shores. And if the courts want to stop him, then I think we're going to see more judges indicted for siding with terrorists and sheltering criminals. That's just begun. These lawfare judges have no idea what's coming. What's coming is Donald Trump's lack of willingness to put up with them blocking his agenda, when what he's trying to do is to defend the American people. Okay, so we're seeing, I think, the end of the DEI. And even Boeing, Trump is saying Boeing can't do Air Force One, the new Air Force One, quick enough. So he subcontracted it to another company, take an old jumbo jet and make it into a new Air Force One faster than Boeing is doing. Okay, so if Boeing is headed by, group that thinks they want to keep DEI, well, they can keep DEI, and they can also find out they're going to lose contract after contract after contract as the airplanes don't work. DEI is not the way to get the top talent. It's the way to get the bottom of the barrel. Okay, so I continue to say and caution everybody that the economics do not look good for the future here. The economics look, I think, to be on the verge anytime we see the stock market up and down, up and down. Okay, so the stock market last week was, seesawing, and let's see how it comes today. The stock market closed on Friday up 564 points in the Dow Jones Industrial Average at 41,317. Well, let's see if it continues to be above 40,000 for the rest of this week. The gold right now is trading at $318 an ounce, $3,318 an ounce, and silver's at $32.46. So I'm imploring you to pay attention on CorsiNation.com to Swiss America. Okay, I'm encouraging you to get the self-directed IRAs. Okay, just talk to the Swiss America counselors. I'll give you the 800 number here in a second. But if you do, you can get a self-directed IRA, which Swiss America will set up for you. They'll set up a depository in Delaware where you can hold actual gold and silver in your IRA or 401k. Okay, then you've got an asset which is going to appreciate, where your stock market and your bond funds are always going to be at risk right now. Okay, this is a diversification that you need to take. And I started talking about this when gold was at $1,800 an ounce. When gold gets to $3,600 an ounce, it will have doubled. And those of you who didn't listen to me have seen your stock portfolio go nowhere but sideways. This is critical that you pay attention to this right now, because we're at a pivotal moment where we're going to see over the next few months pressure on the international markets, which could have a credit crash that will be historic. So Chris put up the 1-800 number. I want to give him and get a copy of this free book. How the coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. I've written this 2 years ago, and it's happening right now. So what we've seen coming is happening, and you need to get on the right side of it. Okay, if you call 1-800-519-6268, write this down, 1-800-519-6268. Talk to Swiss America. They can counsel you. And if you become a client, you can take advantage of this one-time Walking Liberty $50 offer, which these coins are minted in past years. They're about 99.99% pure silver. They're going to appreciate in value, and you get them for about the cost of what they are worth in silver today. It's like a lost leader offer by Swiss America. Take advantage of it. There's a lot of reading material on Swiss America on the website, and we link to it. You get free white papers and various reports. Just explore it on the website. And if you don't listen to me now, when gold is going to be over $4,000 an ounce, you're still going to regret it. Call and talk to Swiss America. You don't have to have a fortune in your IRA or 401k. And you can also buy gold and silver directly and have it shipped to you. Please listen. This is a time to act. And if you don't, you think your mutual funds care about you, you're wrong. Oh, you can just switch. You can go from your stock funds within our family with no cost. You can switch to the bond funds. Well, the bond funds are equally distressed. We've got, $34 trillion in national debt that we're headed toward, paying $1 trillion a year on the interest on the debt. You're seeing that our bonds are harder to sell, and the potential of default is there. Default in reality is perhaps a little bit more remote, but default in fact, when they're just printing new bonds to pay off the old bonds, and you're getting paid in more worthless money than you put into the bonds in the first place, you've taken a loss in real purchasing power, and therefore the bonds get discounted. Mutual fund companies don't give a damn about you. They just want your assets under management. Better take care of yourself, because we're coming into hard economic times, and it's going to be global. Okay, now I want to cover also a statement that Archbishop Vigano gave, and I've gotten a copy of it from the Archbishop. Got the entire statement. He was interviewed here by Bannon recently, and this statement, which is being featured on Gateway Pundit, by the way, Chris, is one of the top articles in Gateway Pundit, talks about the secret China-Vatican agreement that was made between Pope Francis, who's just died, and China, in which the Vatican agreed to essentially let the Communist Party run the Catholic Church in China. And so what they did was that they, under Bergoglio, I'll just read a couple sentences from the Archbishop. The advent of Jorge Mario Bergoglio has totally disrupted 70 years of the Church's steadfast opposition, that is, to communism in China, deceiving Catholics, handing over the faithful and clergy of the underground church to their persecutors, arrests, re-education camps, physical and psychological torture, and all forms of discrimination against lay people. Religious and Catholic priests and bishops have been on the rise just after the signing of the secret agreement. Not to offend Xi Jinping, Vatican News went so far in 2022 to speak of alleged persecution of the Chinese faithful, referring to the facts that Cardinal Joseph Zen, then in trial, had denounced. Wrote the PIME agency in the past, Cardinal Zen has also criticized the Communist Party for alleged persecution of religious communities. When questioned by reporters, Bergoglio did not spend a word in defense of the Chinese cardinal, who had already refused to meet with the Vatican, merely stating, quote, as Bergoglio, to characterize China as undemocratic, I don't feel like it, because it's such a complex country. Yes, it's true that there are things that seem undemocratic to us. That's true. Cardinal Zen is going to trial these days, I think. And what he says, he feels, and you can see there are limitations there. But qualifying China as undemocratic, I don't feel like it. That's Bergoglio. Well, Archbishop Vigano is clear and saying that the 2016, when Hillary Clinton had her presidential campaign and John Podesta, a baptized Catholic, was posting emails that were picked up by WikiLeaks saying that there was a need for an Arab Spring in the Catholic Church. Okay, in other words, the Obama administration wanted to overturn Benedict XVI, and they succeeded. They managed to get Bergoglio to resign. Okay, so here we go. And what this Catholic Spring did was it unleashed the CIA to make sure that Benedict XVI resigned. Okay, now Benedict XVI resigned is essentially a major step toward opening up the Catholic Church to communism, to this new world order. And among the protagonists of the Sino-Vatican agreement is Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin, who is number 2 to Bergoglio and the likely new pope, who spoke at the 47th World Economic Forum in Davos in 2017, at the United Nations Adaptation Summit on Climate Change in 2021, advocating the multiculturalism that Xi Jinping likes so much. Okay, no wonder this Cardinal Parolin enjoys the utmost support of the communist dictatorship in Beijing. I'm reading from Archbishop Vigano. Those who consider Parolin papable today will have to consider what his response as Pope might be the Chinese government's provocation, represented by the appointment of the 2 bishops without apostolic mandate. Okay, so what's happening is that Pope Francis let the Communist Party of China take over the Catholic Church in China. And this is, again, part of the whole multiculturalism, the support of the LGBT community. Pope Francis was essentially a Maoist, and he was for the destruction of the Catholic Church, at least for the destruction of its traditional theology. And the one who should be Pope is Archbishop Vigano. Instead, he's been excommunicated. Well, I think the Vatican conclave, which is now about to begin, had better consider that Francis went too far and crimes have been committed here. Specifically, Biden making a deal with Obama and with the president of Honduras, creating money going to Honduras in order to support the fentanyl coming into the United States that the president of Honduras was involved in financially, and also promoting the child sex trade that was across the border when this golden triangle, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, began flooding the country under Biden, and 300,000 unaccompanied minors came to the United States, and I'm sure were sold into child sex labor and child slave labor. This is a tragedy, and crimes were committed, and they ought to be investigated and prosecuted. And we intend to be working on the list of indictments here, just as we're working on the list of indictments of the states who have these algorithms that allow for cheating in the election. Got to get rid of these algorithms before the 2026 presidential election. We've got to do everything we can to see if we can encourage the Catholic Church not to put in another LGBT pope who will simply continue bankrupting the Catholic Church. Okay, now I'm going to cover one or two more points, but Chris, I'd like you to comment on this because I'm stressing here today the moral decay that is at the heart of this evil Democratic Party. And this moral decay, which I'm advocating in a couple of books here. Number one, Satanic Satan, and Greg Lund. We've been doing interviews with Greg, in which this novel is showing you the abuses in Silicon Valley of those who have gone satanic. The same as in Hollywood, the same as in Washington, D.C., the same with our elites. The pedophilia is rampant. And the signals of pedophilia are in code, but in the open. And the Bidens were at the center of it. Chris, comments.
Well, the funny thing is, if you've watched the Democrats over the years, they've worked hard to destroy the nuclear family. That's a big one. This way, there is, and again, I understand that not everybody has a perfect nuclear family, but to integrate is better than to destroy. As in, the idea is that's a foundation. If you take away a foundation or a loving foundation for people, or a good foundation of guidance for people, that's what they turn towards, the decadence or anything else like that. Or you can tempt them a little more easily without some kind of good moral guidance in the beginning. Then, of course, you destroy religion, unless it's a preferred religion. That again, that's another story for another day. But the idea is take the world's dominant religions and minimize them, marginalize them, like the Christians and the Jewish people, because if without guidance from them, without guidance from those churches, people have to turn somewhere else, and that's where they go: celebrity, the state, and whatever political leader that tells them things are going to be okay if we give you free stuff. And this is all in exchange for a little bit of moral decay every generation. Now we're seeing the amalgamation of all these efforts for the last, I don't know, I suppose since the Franklin Institute, the Frankfurt Institute, excuse me, if you will.
Well, I want to end with this one story here that I think is extremely important. I agree with you, by the way. And the moral decay is, I think, what that Trump was elected to reverse. American people are sick of it. Now, the Israeli government has just approved a plan for Netanyahu to seize all of the Gaza Strip and hold control over the territory. Now, I think this is, again, something that Trump is supporting. I think Trump has solutions here. Number one is cut off the money to NATO. NATO dies. Cut off the money to the UN dies. UN's only months away from running out of money. Let it run out of money. Who cares? We don't need the UN. We'd be better off to take that land over on the East River in New York City and make it into a parking lot. It's an anti-American organization that's destructive. Okay, same with NATO, the same with Zelensky. Just quit funding them. Without the money, they can't subsist in their evil. Just like we're defunding PBS. We're defunding Voice of America. And these judges are finally going to have to come around, because if they don't, American people are going to be turning on the judges with a vengeance, saying, let's go after prosecute these judges for violating the law. Okay, so if Israel takes over the Gaza, and I think now the cabinet have unanimously approved plans for this new offensive, which is going to begin today. So tens of thousands of reserve soldiers are being called up in Israel, and the plan is for the conquering of Gaza. Okay, so the Palestinians aren't returning right away. It's not happening. And I think offers by Libya and other countries to take the Palestinians is, again, another solution. We can't keep doing the same things over again and think we're winning. So you look, we have a war where Israel makes some progress in Gaza, then the Palestinians return. We get Hamas coming back on the rise. It gets funded by Iran. We'll cut off the money to Iran. All Donald Trump has to do is cut off the money. By the way, China is also in deep trouble with the cutting off of their tariff money and putting tariffs there, so that the Chinese goods are no longer cheap coming into the United States. All this slave labor has got to end. And we've got to, this whole free trade, which was nothing but ship our manufacturing overseas to weaken the United States, is also coming to an end. What we're seeing here with the Trump administration is truly, I think, going to become fundamentally a reversal of this insanity of the neo-Marxism and the cultural Maoism that is, and the anarchy, Black Lives Matter, etc., that have dominated our politics for years. And the mainstream media had better catch on, because people are getting sick and tired of these gotcha interviews and this anti-Trump propaganda. So cut off the money. USAID, no more money to political. And don't let them shift that money to some other agency. The bureaucracy is dead set against Donald Trump. Firing 10% of the bureaucracy is a drop in the budget. Fire 90% of them. Or do what I'm saying to do. Move the entire federal bureaucracy to Death Valley. And let's see how many of these Georgetown liberals want to go out there with the tarantulas, which are their natural cousins. Okay? And they can have all the civil service they want, but they got to relocate to Death Valley. Quonset huts, they can have all the wind and solar they want. They can have every other bad idea they can think of. But they're not going to live in Washington, D.C. in their comfortable lives where they can impose their rules to destroy our economy, which is what they've been doing through the EPA and other agencies. Donald Trump is, in a sense, creating a massive change, and it will take more than the first 100 days to make it realized. But I'm extremely encouraged that things are moving in the right direction, and I'm extremely pleased that the hand of God appears to be on Donald Trump, especially after he survived that assassination attempt. And a final comment I want to make is the end God always wins. God's going to win here too. Dr. Jerome Corsi, we're CorsiNation.com. We'll be back every weekday with more podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. God bless.